Because every YouTuber who has a channel of decent traffic gets contacted by the usual suspects. I could name them, but I won't. And they say, okay, be part of our group, and a year or two ago it was, we'll raise your CPM rates, we'll give you cross-pollination, but they didn't necessarily have a really good reason they should partner with them. And I think it's becoming more and more obvious not to go with an MCN these days unless they actually bring certain things to the table. And I'm guessing that's how you choose your people.
I think there's two questions there. One is, what do MCNs actually provide?
Right.
And two is, how do they evolve at all? So if we roll back the clock, let's put how do they provide value? So the former question, let's put that on hold for a bit and talk about the latter. So MCNs evolved really in two ways, or in the early days. One is, back to the first comment you made on YouTube, it can be a very lonely place. And the idea to have the ability to just idea share is pretty much welcome. Especially when there's some money on the line, right? So you're a creator, everybody thinks they're talented, you're a talented creator, you start to get audience, it feels like all the right things are happening, but no money's coming in. One, you can ask for some help, and there are all kinds of communities, blogs, etc. online outside of your MCN that can give you some salient advice, and it's great. I think it's probably, for me, it's one of the greatest things about producing content right now is the feedback loop is incredibly tight. People are very open, whether it's critical or not, or supportive. 90% of the time they are very supportive because they can see you're putting your heart and your energy into this stuff. As long as your heart and your energy are in the right place, it really works. So that part of kind of a community, that's not what the MCN, the C in networks or in MCN stands for, but that community to me is vibrant, alive, and can be accessed whether you're in an MCN or not. The piece that early day MCNs came along with was a check. So they said, I'll pay you, let's pick a number out of midair, $5 for every 1,000 views you get, knowing full well that YouTube was paying people, let's call it $1, maybe $2, so I don't get in any trouble with my peers. And so of course you'd take that phone call. Of course you'd click the box or sign the document. And there were kids who were underage signing documents. It was the Wild West. But when you're coming from a lonely, dark place where you don't have any friends and you're wondering where all the money is, it's probably very welcome to jump into the warm water. And because we're a content producer, MCNs would come to us. And they'd say, come on, here's the deal, and so on and so forth.
And why would they do that? Because they expect to make more money from you in the long term.
Yeah, where's the spread coming from, right? If YouTube pays them $2 and they pay you $5.
That's venture capital.
Yeah, exactly. You get WhatsApp that gets sold for $19 billion. You're just buying users and audience and eyeballs.
WhatsApp was probably pretty profitable.
Yeah.
You have an arbitrage model where if you can build value and close the gap, then you're in business. So going back to my spreadsheet junkie days, I was in investment banking before I had started my own business in 2001, 2002. There's 3 ways to value business. Cash flow, so there's no cash flow. 2, asset value. So for example, a gold mine that hasn't been mined yet doesn't have cash flow, but has high asset value. So there might be asset value to an MCN. We should probably parse all 3 of these. Or 3, there might be some future value that you're building in some way, shape, or form. Probably 19 billion was not current cash flow of WhatsApp, but in terms of future value, it might have had it there. So contained value is kind of the catchphrase within venture. Let's just go through each of those really quickly. If we think of cash flow, I think, going back almost a year, we were the only apparently profitable MCN. We're told that by a very good source. I'm not sure if it's true or not. There's probably others out there that'll be ringing me as I say this. But in terms of the ecosystem, there aren't many that are cash flow positive. And even us, we've been on each end of it as we've invested in new channels, new IP, right? We're constantly kind of, rather than looking at our P&L, thinking about how much value we're really creating. I think when it comes to the MCN question, cash flow maybe wasn't front and center. So let's put that one aside. The second one is asset value. And I think probably the biggest point of difference between Diagonal View and almost every other NCN in the world is not the cash position, because we haven't had any venture money, so we've had to be very tight. But it's actually the second one, which is what assets have we been making? So when we talk about all-time 10s, which is that top channel you were referring to, some of the top clips in terms of earning us money today were produced 3 years ago. And when we look at vintages of content that we've made, we make more money on our 08 produced content this year than we have in any other year, through higher ad rates, more audience, and better content management. i.e. Kind of what we do with it for those third parties. So when I look at contained value, which is owned IP, we've built up a massive amount of that.
And this could be an old top 10 list from 2008, 2009 that people are still watching and they're still sipping up ads.
If somebody offered me the digital rights to Star Wars, I'd bite their arm off. Right, not for necessarily the money I would make this year, but the money I would make into perpetuity.
Do you repackage that content from the past? Or
Sometimes, if it's relevant. So if we can find a reason to bubble it up, say we're making top 10 most dangerous places revisited, we'll attach in a playlist the original top 10 most dangerous places.
Okay.
So there's some bubbling up, some is just occurring naturally, but probably the most important part, Brian, is when it's made, we think about it as an evergreen piece of content. So we're very, very rarely chasing ambulances.
Which is rare for YouTube. There's a lot of content that has no shelf life,
Yeah.
newsworthy,
Yeah.
football, goal scores,
Yeah.
that kind of thing.